The air was sweet with the scent of jasmine. The Periyar River flowed gently past their home. Rajan and Rani Nair sat on their veranda watching the sunset. They were old now, their faces were etched with wrinkles, but their love for each other was as strong as ever. Rajan and Rani had lived in this village all their lives. They had a small house surrounded by coconut trees. They had worked hard, they had faced many challenges, but they had always had each other. And they had raised 3 wonderful children. Their children were their pride and joy. They had given them the best education they could afford. They had sent them abroad for better opportunities. They had always believed that their children would have a better life than they did. And they were right. Their children were now successful professionals. They lived in big cities. They had families of their own. Rajan and Rani were happy for them, but they missed them terribly. They longed to see their grandchildren. They yearned to hear their laughter. Life in the village went on at its own pace. Days turned into months and months into years. Rajan and Rani filled their time with simple pleasures. They tended their garden. They visited the local temple. They chatted with their neighbors. They eagerly awaited their children's calls. Every call was a celebration. They would tell their children about the village. They would ask about their lives. They would share their joys and sorrows. But the calls became less frequent. The children were busy with their lives. They had their own families to care for. They had their own problems to deal with. Rajan and Rani understood, but it didn't make the silence any easier. The letters, too, became fewer and farther between. The colourful postcards from exotic locations were replaced by hurried emails. The long, detailed letters filled with news and anecdotes became short, impersonal messages. Rajan and Rani treasured every word. They read each letter over and over again. They would imagine their children's lives. They would dream of the day they would all be together again. Rajan's health began to decline. He was no longer the strong, sturdy man he used to be. He tired easily. He had trouble walking. He spent most of his days in his armchair. Rani took care of him with love and devotion. She never complained. She never showed her fear. She knew that Rajan needed her to be strong, but deep down, she was worried. She was afraid of what the future held. She was afraid of losing Rajan. She wished their children were here. She wished they could see their father. She wished they could spend some time with him. One day, Rajan had a fall. He was rushed to the hospital. Rani stayed by his side. She prayed for his recovery. She knew that he was getting weaker. The doctor told Rani that Rajan needed constant care. He needed to be hospitalized. Rani knew that she couldn't manage alone. She had to tell her children. Rani hesitated. She didn't want to burden her children. She knew they were busy. She didn't want to spoil their happiness, but she also knew that time was running out. She had to tell them. She had to bring them home. With a heavy heart, Rani made the call. She told her children about Rajan's condition. She tried to be strong. She tried to sound optimistic, but her voice trembled. Her children could hear the unspoken plea in her voice. They could hear the fear. They could hear the loneliness. For the first time in a long time, the children felt a pang of guilt. They realized how much they had neglected their parents. They realized how much they had taken them for granted. At first there was silence. The children were shocked. They were filled with regret. They had been so caught up in their own lives, they had forgotten about the 2 people who loved them the most. Then there was a flurry of activity. The children started making arrangements to come home. They booked flights. They applied for leave. They made arrangements for their families. They realized that their careers, their ambitions, their material possessions meant nothing. Their parents were old. Their father was sick. They needed to be with them. It was a wake-up call. It was a reminder of what truly mattered in life. It was a reminder that time waits for no one. They had spent years chasing success. They had traveled the world. They had accumulated wealth and possessions. But they had forgotten the most important thing. They had forgotten their roots. They had forgotten their family. The children arrived one by one. There were tears and embraces. There were apologies and regrets. But there was also love. There was a sense of relief. There was a sense of belonging. The house was filled with life again. There was laughter and chatter. There was the aroma of Rani's cooking. There was the sound of children playing. Rajan rallied for a while. He was happy to see his children. He was happy to see his grandchildren. He shared stories of his childhood. He gave them his blessings. One evening as the sun was setting, Rajan breathed his last. He died peacefully, surrounded by his family. There was sadness, there were tears, but there was also a sense of peace. Rajan had lived a full life. He had died surrounded by the people he loved. Life went on. The children returned to their lives abroad, but they were changed. They had learned a valuable lesson. They had learned the importance of family. They had learned the importance of being there for each other. They called their mother more often. They visited her whenever they could. They made sure that she was never alone. The coconut grove by the river stood silent. The Periyar River flowed gently past. But the memories lingered, the memories of love, laughter, and togetherness. Rajan and Rani's love story was a reminder that in the end, family is all that matters. It is a reminder to cherish the time we have with our loved ones. It is a reminder that home is where the heart is.